Good afternoon, people. Good afternoon. Alright, it's actually really late, actually. So, let me take off my headphones, Jack. I should just drop that shit off. Okay, let's start with the process, the optimization of your server, your Minecraft server, in fact. This has a very in-depth look into server jar file types. There are the main ones: folio, paper forks, like puffer, perper, spigot, which is basically the worst kind. Just don't use spigot at all. Anyway, I'll go in a little bit in depth on this. This page is open up for everybody. If you would like to take a look, read a little bit about everything in here. What I think, this is mainly an opinion, but there's a lot of factual information that correlates to my opinion. So don't take this as, for example, I think perper is better than paper. I think paper's better, but that depends on how you optimize everything. That depends on this, and it depends on your goal. So let's take a look. Let's start with folio. This is a multi-threaded jar. What multi-threaded is it basically takes the CPU and divides the world into regions. And let's say I'm on spawn. That's the main, and we have a main thread. Our spawn is overwhelmed with 300 people, right? But that's not the main thread. So the main thread is having less work to do than other threads, like separate. And it allows the server to have like very nice bottlenecked server performance. Because if you guys didn't know, Minecraft is a single threaded game. With this being said, there are stuff that like counteracts that. For example, some plugins use multiple threads, etc. But Minecraft itself is genuinely single-threaded. This jar file makes it multi-threaded in terms of chunk loading and performance. Now, it's for the pros, it's very stable and very high performance. Now, the cons. The incompatibility. If you go to monitoring.com. So we go into the plugins, right? And then we just search up. Let's look at the first one. The first three will probably see. You have to have folio. Now this is a plugin. So this is actually a great example. This is a popular plugin. And for example, this does not support folio. This just doesn't support folio, bro. I actually don't know if this is a plugin. I'm confused. Oh no, it is. It is a plugin. And yeah, it doesn't support folio. And if it doesn't support folio, then it just won't work on folio. Unlike spigot. For example, you have a spigot plugin, but it works on paper just the same. And that's the problem. It's perfect other than that. And it's complex. It might take a little bit to set up, and you might not. Paper, the modern standard, which is basically what everybody should be using, minimum. You should never use spigot. It's the legacy. Basically, it's a legacy version of spigot. It's like obsolete in performance, and it's not really recommended. Paper and perper. Perper is a modern jar file. At least it's good for modern purposes. Using paper versus perper. What's the difference? Perper is better at optimizing their mechanics, I guess, during modern gameplay, I guess. And I will recommend perper, but that depends on how you set it. If you optimize perper to its max, and optimize paper to its maximum, you can do all of these things, but yeah, there's limits to making it. So it's really not much better, and there is a bit of compatibility issues with perper. Not as bad as folio, but there is compatibility issues. for any really jar file that you need is going to be at mcutils.com. The ACAR flag, this does not work. Basically, you have to format it. So if you go to like chatgpt.com or something, format, and then start. There we go. And we can just go into here. We're gonna reset it for now, just so. I did not mean to do that. And then we can go into my tutorial world and join it. Test it out. Things work. And it works just fine. Fantastic. So, and make sure you have this set to your RAM requirements. If you have 4 gigabytes of RAM, you use 4 gigabytes. You have to change the G number, like for example right here, to the number of how much RAM you have. I should probably mention that. Make sure to change the G number to always. So, for example, set to 4. Alright, so that should make sense to you. And then we can just obviously go to here, start up, and then we can change this to this, and it should work. We can go to tutorial and restart. I did mess up. This is the config version of my config. If you just, I'll show you where to get these. And if you notice, the high RAM usage, that's because the ACAR flags are meant to. So you see how it's using 4.5 gigabytes? I'll show you something. So if we change the startup command to reset notification, so we can just go. Now this. It depends on your use case, but it should be fine anyway. This will make your RAM usage much less if that's something you're struggling with. I will mention that. Also, keep in mind, let's say your server uses 1 gigabyte by itself, and then 100 megabytes per player is I guess that's how we're gonna put it. Notice how it's only using a gig now. That is because ACAR flags are meant to use more RAM. Let me clarify that one more time. ACAR flags are meant to use more RAM. Because do not say your optimizations suck if you don't know why they suck. Also, this should give you about the best performance you're going to get out of this kind of server. You can run a Folio. We'll do that later in my next video. I'll show you how to make a Folio server and run it. But this should be it, basically. Your server runs fine. We can add plugins, on server. And I'll probably show you a little bit more later in my next video. This will be open for everybody to use. Just make sure y'all can just read that up on this. I made this for a friend that's really retarded. I'll show you how to. So you take this, copy that file, and then you put it into your spigot.py. And then in your config folder, you'll see these folders. The only folders you care about are Leaf, Paper, Global, and Paper World defaults. And you'll paste them depending on what name. So it's pretty optimized. If you have any problems, let me know. And okay, so this is a segment of the video I forgot to mention, the server.properties. So I did forget to mention this in the initial clip. So let's go to server.properties and I'll go through it step by step. stuff you need to edit in here is probably the chunk revenue. I do recommend turning this full slow and force careful while just messing with everything. I do recommend generally not using much of this. This is viral shit, so you might not want to mess with this too much unless you know what you're doing. Yeah, here's the go. So you want to set your spawn and render projection to whatever you want. And let's really talk about the important stuff. Simulation distance. What you should have is how much RAM you have. That sounds stupid, right? But here's the thing. If you have more than 10 gigabytes of RAM, I would set it to 7 for the simulation and 8 for the view distance. If you have, for example, 4 or 5 gigabytes, 5 and 5 should be good. You generally want lower, like you want this to be 4 and that to be 5. Your simulation should always be lower than your view distance. And then once you restart, I'll explain a little bit what I've done with the config. And that should be the end of this segment. Okay. So as you can see, I optimized random ticks. I've loaded the config with an async entity tracker, pathfinding locator. I do a little bit more of that, but pretty simple. And starting the background profiler, which is really nice. Spark is just really easy. If you want to use Spark profiler open, and you should get Spark profiler open, for example, and profile. And you should get, you'll see the high RAM usage. I talked about it already, so do not make any comments about that, please. Bye bye, guys. Have a good day.